this one is a little more clear, right? There's more clarity in this situation. It's more out and out, a quarterback battle between two players, and that's Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. So who do you think should start for the Broncos? Obviously, we're one day into training camp, but give me your prediction on how this competition is going to play out and who you think should start.
So Drew Lock's been there for 2 years. First year, I want to say they were 4-1 with one loss to the Chiefs. I loved the Broncos team last year. I thought they were like my dark horse team to do really good. And Drew Lock just kind of at least showed me he's not that guy. I get the arm talent, but that really is kind of about it with him. I don't think his decision making was quite great. Costly just at critical times, just the worst mistakes. Watch the end of the Patriots game and you'll just be dumbfounded by some of the throws being made with 2 minutes left. And I'm still going to say they're going to start Drew Lock because here's why. He has the arm. They took him in the second round. He has been injured. Their O-line's still not the best, so he kind of has that excuse going for him for a little bit. His number one receiver was injured last year. But this year, there is no excuse. He's got about 5 games to show he's worth, I guess, being the starter. They have, I guess, somewhat improved O-line with Bowles just being out of nowhere incredibly great, like legitimately one of the best tackles in the league, like a top 5 at minimum. They got Sutton back. The receiving core is great. They have Melvin Gordon. They drafted Javonte Williams. They have Noah Fant at tight end, who's really solid after the catch. Another year for Fangio. Their defense is getting healthier, so that's better. It's basically, is he the guy or is he not? And if he is, they should win at least 9-10 games because they have a really talented roster. And if not, I hate to say it, but your chances of winning with Teddy are better at that point in the fact that he can kind of let the roster, I guess, win the games for him and just basically go out there to not mess up and run the heck out of the ball, have their defense with Von Miller coming back and debatably the best secondary, I'd say probably the best secondary in the league, just shutting down opposing offenses and just playing that style where it's a little more grinded out and less, Drew Lock gunslinging on the run as they do a lot of play actions and stuff of that nature. So I think give Drew Lock like 4 or 5 games, and if they're 500 or he's just not the guy, just him and don't even think twice about it because it's not worth the energy anymore.
Yeah, so I think if you look at their team philosophically, if you look at their defense this year, their defense, first of all, is stacked. You said it's the best secondary. I think it's the best secondary in the NFL. When you look at corners and safeties, like Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, Kyle Fuller, and you just go down the list, they drafted Patrick Surtain. It's the best secondary in football. Then you add Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, who are finally healthy together, and Vic Fangio calling their defense. You're going to have a top 5 defense in the NFL. So if you have a top 5 defense, you have a ton of weapons on offense. You have an okay offensive line with a really good offensive tackle in Bowles, like you mentioned, right? Having conservative Teddy Two Gloves really makes sense. But I think they will start Drew Lock, and I think they should start Drew Lock. The first thing is that Drew Lock's talent is obviously off the charts. Like, he has a really, really big arm, and he really does have the ability to throw the football off platform. Well, that's not everything because he was quite possibly the worst starting quarterback in the NFL last year. You could definitely make that argument. He struggled making decisions. He struggled in terms of a lot of different things. He struggled making decisions. He struggled with his accuracy. And he was really just one of the biggest reasons the Broncos offense struggled last year. There's no doubt about it. So Drew Lock, just wasn't that good. So, like, in essence, why do I think they should start Drew Lock? It's quite simple to me. It's because of his talent, right? I just keep going back to the fact that I like his arm. I think he's got a big arm. And I think if things go right for Drew Lock, he can be an above-average starter. Now, he's so far from that, and so many things have to go right. So I think your scenario is more likely to happen. It's what happened with the Bears, Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles last year, right? They gave Mitch Trubisky the first run, and then 4 games into the season, they put in Nick Foles. I think that's what's going to end up happening with Drew Lock. Except I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to give up the job because I think the team around Drew Lock and this Denver Broncos roster with Vic Fangio, I think it's so good that I think with Teddy they can legitimately win 10 games even in that division and make the playoffs. With Teddy just playing conservative football, so I think that's so important, and I think because of that. I think that's what's going to end up happening. But I still would start Drew Lock week one, and I think they should start Drew Lock week one just because you got to give the talent one more chance. He's just way too talented to give up on without giving one more chance, even though it's likely that that talent is going to let you down.
Yeah, I mean, he has, in his fairness, he only started 5 games his first year. This past year, he was out a little bit, so you can
with COVID.
Yeah, so you can give him that excuse, but there does come a point where it's like you got to show us something, or you just can't come out and start for us anymore. And I think I've said it too. Like I thought he was a lot better than he was his rookie year. He showed something, and maybe it's because we didn't have any tape on him, but yeah, he just really underwhelmed me a lot last year, especially with what they have because. People don't really talk about the receivers, and even with Sutton out, they have Judy, they have Tim Patrick, who is really, really underrated. They have Hamler, they have Noah Fant, they have weapons. Like they have guys that can play make where you just got to give them the ball. So I really at some point think it's do or die for Drew Lock, and he's done so. I think eventually that'll be the case, and Teddy will take over. And Teddy did fine on the Panthers this past season. Like they weren't going to win like any playoff games or anything, but they were a really competitive team. And I would say that the Broncos offense has more talent on their side, especially
really?
if McCaffrey was injured. Yeah, McCaffrey. I mean, it was basically you're comparing the receivers of the Panthers, right, to the receivers of the Broncos.
Yeah.
And those are somewhat comparable.
Really, I would take DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel over Cortland Sutton, Jerry Judy, Tim Patrick, and KJ Hamler. I guess maybe if you throw in Fant, but
you throw in the running backs too. I thought Melvin Gordon did a really fine job, and Philip Lindsay's good when he's like out there. He's just not.
But he's in Houston, right?
Yeah, now they have Javonte Williams, who's just a wreck.
Oh, you're right. They did draft Javonte Williams. Okay, fair. And then the offensive lines are similar. Like the Panthers have one really good,
one elite guy, and then
Moton and Bowles, and then everybody else is just kind of whatever.
But I'd rather probably have Joe Brady
and then Shermer.
But I'd say just in general, it's relatively comparable.
Okay, fair enough. And then like. He was also very successful. Like Joe Brady runs a similar system to what the Saints run. It's just a less creative version of that, but it's the same philosophy. Teddy went 5-0? Yeah, he went 5-0 in 2019 without Drew Brees, including winning in Seattle. So, yeah,
he's capable of being just like startable, right? Like,
yeah,
there's been a lot worse players that have started and won games than Teddy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line.
100%.